Chapter 1601. Everyone watched while Daisy and Nole danced, and they all saw how perfect they were. However, they didn't see that Daisy kept making mistakes and stepping on his toes. "I'm sorry." She never made mistakes when she danced with Colton, but now she kept repeating them. Nole noticed something and chuckled. "Why are you nervous when you're dancing with me?" I am not nervous." She lied. She knew very well that that wasn't the truth. Nole's palm was pressed on the back of her waist, and she suddenly bumped into his chest when he pulled. His voice came from above her head. "I've been preparing for a long time so that I could have this dance with you." Daisy looked at him in surprise. "Why?" He joked, "Because I don't want you to think less of me, because I danced badly." Daisy chuckled. "Yet, it turns out I'm the one dancing badly." "No, you're doing well." When they twirled, Nole pulled her back against his chest and leaned down closer. "You look beautiful tonight." Daisy looked at him in surprise. Nole finally let her go when the music stopped, removed his mask, and walked toward the elders. Tristan put his hand on his shoulder and teased him. "That's why you've been practicing duet dances." "It's because of this." Nole never practiced duet dances, mainly because he rarely attended parties and didn't have the time to learn these. He had started preparing a few months ago, but Tristan didn't know that it was because of this. Nole smiled. "Did I make you proud?" Tristan smiled and said, "You did well." Daisy stood there with her hands open. She didn't realize that she was so nervous her palms were sweating and wondered if he had noticed. "Daisy." Lisa approached her. Daisy closed her palms and turned to face Lisa with a smile on her face. "Yes?" Lisa held her hand and said, "Daisy, we haven't met in 4 years. You've grown even prettier." Everyone around them started muttering, "Does Miss Goldman know this adopted child of the Noles? They seem close." Lisa smirked when she heard that. It was the coming-of-age party that the Goldman held for Daisy. With so many people around, if Daisy wanted to ruin her own party, she could just push her away. She loved to be at the top of the circle, just by being the princess of the Goldman family, so Lisa was going to show everyone what she actually was like. "Daisy, we used to be best friends, and even though we haven't met in 4 years, I've always missed you. I'm so glad to be able to attend your birthday party today." Lisa wasn't loud, but everyone around heard her clearly. "So, Miss Goldman is really friends with the girl. This girl is pretty interesting." Daisy looked down and calmly pulled her hand back. "When were we friends?" Lisa's face froze. "Daisy, how could?" Daisy crossed her arms and smiled. "Firstly, my invitation is for the Noles family, not for Miss Fraser. You came uninvited. Secondly, we're not close, so don't pretend we are." Chapter 1602. Lisa froze on the spot while listening to the jeering around her and looking more and more troubled. "Daisy, how could you say that? We used to. Let's not bring up the past." Daisy picked up a glass of champagne and raised her brows. "I'm no longer that silly girl who you could manipulate. Lisa, do you think that I will just let you get away because there are people here?" Daisy then splashed the champagne on herself and gasped loudly. Everyone looked over. Colton rushed out from the crowd and snarled upon seeing that. "Lisa, what did you do this time?" Lisa shook her head. "No, she." "Lisa." Tristan looked stoic. "What did you promise me?" "I didn't bring you here to cause a scene. It really wasn't me. She did it to herself. She wants to frame me." Everyone saw that. She looked at the people around her, hoping that they could speak for her. Unfortunately, even if they saw it, they didn't want to offend the Goldman, so nobody would come forth. Daisy wiped her dress and held on to Colton. "Colton, don't worry about it. It's just champagne. There's no need to be angry at her. You really are silly. How could you believe her? Have you forgotten how she treated you all those years ago?" Colton was annoyed because it had been 4 years, yet his sister hadn't learned from her past mistakes. Daisy shook his arm. It's our birthday. Let's just keep it happy, alright? She looked at the pale Lisa, through the corner of her eyes. The girl had framed her once 4 years ago, so it was time for payback. She had never mistreated Lisa, so now she wouldn't give her another chance to hurt her. Daisy Vanderbilt, you did that to yourself. Why are you framing me? Lisa was upset. Did those people go blind? They had seen what happened, but because Daisy was a Goldman, they were afraid to stand up for her because they didn't want to offend the Goldman. Enough. Tristan took a deep breath upon realizing that bringing her over was a mistake. Lisa, apologize, right now. Godfather, I really didn't. She stopped and suddenly looked at Nole, who was standing aside in silence for help. Nole. Nole looked at the glass in his hand. You should apologize when Uncle Tristan asks you to. Don't ruin the family name. Lisa bit her lip hard as she saw the dismayed expressions of everyone around her. She hated Daisy to death. All Daisy had to do was just be her silly self like she was 4 years ago so she could manipulate her. She didn't expect her to have learned to frame people in 4 years. She had miscalculated. Lisa started crying. I'm sorry, Daisy. Please forgive me. Daisy smiled and went forward. You've apologized, so I will definitely forgive you. Just be a nice person from now on. Lisa looked into Daisy's eyes. She still had a sweet smile on, just like her silly self all those years ago. Lisa balled up her fist, turned around, and left the party. Tristan sighed and walked forward. I'm sorry, Daisy. I shouldn't have brought her to your party. Daisy shook her head. It's fine, Uncle Tristan. It's not your fault. Nolan squinted because he had seen everything. He turned to look at Maisie. Since when did our daughter turn into you? Chapter 1603. His little lamb had grown up. Maisie pinched his waist. She's my daughter, so of course she'd be just like me. Nolan winced before smiling. Of course. Maisie smirked. Daisy has gone through a lot. If she were still naive, I would be worried. She didn't think what her daughter had done was wrong. It was an eye for an eye, and Lisa really wasn't a kind person. Ever since Lisa had betrayed her for the sake of fame, Daisy was no longer that naive little girl. Daisy went into the guest room to change. When she framed Lisa, she almost couldn't do it. But when she heard that Lisa was trying to trick her again, she couldn't help it. She no longer wanted to be the silly girl. Like her mother had said, kindness shouldn't be the reason to let others walk over you. She stood there and saw someone from the mirror behind her. She covered herself and blushed. Knowles. Knowles leaned against the door with his arms crossed and smiled. You didn't close the door. That doesn't mean you can. Look, get out. Daisy turned around, her face flushed. I'll wait for you outside. Knowles closed the door. Daisy quickly changed, walked out, and saw Nole standing there waiting for her. She angrily walked over. I'm older now. You shouldn't do that. She wasn't a kid anymore. Nole scanned her body. I don't see much growth. Daisy covered her chest and choked. Don't you dare look. She realized that Knowles had turned more into a prick after growing older. Knowles chuckled and tidied up her hair as he approached her. You really are from the performance class. Your acting was so good you were able to trick your brother. Daisy was stunned. Why, you saw through it? Knowles raised his brows, but didn't reply. Daisy pouted. She's your cousin now. I framed her, yet you didn't help? Knowles leaned closer. She's not my actual cousin, so why should Q? Don't come so close. Daisy pushed him away, but he wouldn't move. Colton is going to read this the wrong way if he sees this. How would he read it? That, you have feelings for me. Daisy wanted to bite off her tongue after saying that and smiled awkwardly. I was joking. Daisy, do you know that there's a custom in Morwich? She was curious. What custom? Nolan smiled and stared at her, In Morwich, coming-of-age parties are very important for girls. When a boy gives a girl a brooch on that day, it means that he has feelings for her. Daisy was surprised and looked at him in bewilderment. Are you joking? Didn't Colton pick the brooch too? Did he have feelings for her? No, they were siblings. Nole laughed while rubbing her head. He's not from Morwich, so he wouldn't know. That's why I took the present that he wanted. Daisy looked away and was glad that Nole had taken it. They would have been a joke if Colton had given her a brooch. Chapter 1604. But that wasn't the main point. The point was Nole had feelings for her. Daisy pressed her lips together. I don't believe you. Nole planted a kiss on her forehead. At that moment, time stopped, but her heart was beating quickly. He stayed there. Do you believe me now? Daisy looked around, then slowly up into his eyes. There was a knock on the door. Daisy pushed him away when Maisie and Nolan walked in. Are you done change? Nolan's face dropped when he saw Nole there. Daisy felt awkward. Dad, Mom. Maisie cleared her throat. The party isn't over yet. Go downstairs if you're done changing. All right, I'll do that. Daisy immediately escaped like a shy bunny. Nole walked toward the two of them and nodded. Sir, madam. Nolan's eyes were dark. Don't call me sir. Nole looked straight into his eyes and smiled. Should I call you father-in-law then? Maisie laughed but covered her mouth. This kid was pretty clever. Nolan's veins started popping as he ground his teeth. Mr. Knowles, be careful what you say. He nodded. All right, sir. They looked into each other's eyes as if a storm was about to begin. Maisie held Nolan's arm. All right, you're not young anymore. There's no need to argue with a kid. I'm not arguing, didn't you hear him? Maisie cut him off before he could finish. I think Nole isn't too bad. He's smarter than you and isn't blind. She was referring to him being blinded by Willow. Nolan put his hand to his forehead. Are we going that far back? Are you tired of me already? I wouldn't, Nolan smiled. I'm sorry, honey. I'll let it drop. Go down. I want to speak to Nole alone. Nolan glared at Nole before leaving. Nole looked around and smiled. Madam, what do you want to speak to me about? She walked to him. Daisy is my precious daughter, Nolan's too. Her father and brothers have been spoiling her since she was a child and did a lot of silly things. Now that she's older, I'm less worried. But... She raised her eyebrows and looked at Nole. She never had experience with relationships before. If you really can treat her right, I will be relieved. If you hurt her, however, I won't let you get away, no matter who you are. Nole looked down. Don't worry, madam. I promise to you both that I will not change my mind. Don't be too sure. Maisie walked aside. You have a long life ahead of you, and no one knows what the future holds. You haven't even finished school yet, and you're the heir of the Knowles family. After Daisy graduates, she will return to Zlokova. Long-distance relationships don't usually end well. Nole looked at her. I can expand the Knowles empire to Zlokova. Maisie paused, then smiled and turned back to look at him. Don't you think that it's unfair if I ask this of you? You want to be with Daisy, and instead of keeping her in Yarramore, you're going to expand the empire to Zlokova. That's not an easy task. Chapter 1605. Madam, there's nothing that I can't do in this world. Maisie nodded and smiled after hearing his reply. The next day, at the Victoria Business College, Daisy walked into the campus and remembered what Nole had said to her yesterday. She didn't know how she should face him. Nole has feelings for me. Since when? Daisy Vanderbilt. At that moment, a blonde girl ran toward her angrily and shoved her. Do you think you can bully Lisa because of your family? Lisa is kind, so how could you humiliate her in public like that? Are you proud of yourself? Daisy brushed her clothes and looked at her. Anna, are you bothering me because of your friend? Juliana McKee was Lisa's new friend and had targeted Daisy several times. It seemed that this was all part of Lisa's plan. She hadn't gotten into the college, but definitely had help from the inside. At that moment, Lisa suddenly ran over and held Juliana back. Anna, don't be angry. It's not Daisy's fault. It's all my fault. She framed you, and yet you still speak up for her. This is the old best friend that you mentioned? This is how she treated you? No, Lisa looked sad but was actually thrilled on the inside. It didn't matter that she wasn't part of the school. Juliana thought that she was her friend, and Daisy would have a tough time there with her around. Lisa wasn't going to let Daisy off after what happened last night. Anna, it's my own problem. I made Daisy hate me, and that was how the misunderstanding started. Stop being nice to her. She's just doing whatever she wants, because she's a Goldman. Juliana pointed at Daisy. You better apologize to her, or I'll expose your true nature to everyone. Sure. Daisy crossed her arms. If you want to bring justice, go ahead. Daisy touched her chin and laughed. So what if I'm doing things, because I'm a Goldman? It's better than bullying others for their kindness. Go ahead and expose me. Daisy, stop triggering Anna. She's innocent. You know that, don't you? Daisy looked toward Lisa with no expression. If you know that and still urged her to come and challenge me, it shows that you want her to bring justice for you. Lisa, you're still using your sad stories to manipulate others. You'll never change, will you? Daisy, how could you say that about me? Lisa sadly covered her face. Juliana's voice was piercing. Daisy Vanderbilt. Even if others are wary of who you are, I am not. Apologize to Lisa immediately. Her voice attracted the passerby's attention. And the more people looked over, the sadder Lisa pretended to be. Daisy, please don't blame Anna. She's just doing this for me. I'm your target. In Juliana's eyes, Lisa was a kind girl, and now that she came to ask her for help, she had to do her best to protect this friend. Lisa, there's no need to beg her. We don't need to be afraid. She bullied you and looked down on you, so she's at fault here. Chapter 1606. Lisa smiled inwardly when Juliana was standing on her side. Juliana's father was the most famous diplomatic envoy of Yarramore. Even though she was not from a noble family, her family was of the upper class. Juliana reminded Daisy of her past self, and Daisy couldn't help but laugh at herself. At that time, she was certain that Leah had been laughing at her for her stupidity as well when she warned her not to bully Lisa anymore. She laughed and asked, "You want me to apologize to Lisa? You've done something wrong, so don't you think you should apologize to her? She's the one at fault, not me. As for why I hate her so much, why don't you ask her yourself and see if she has the guts to tell you or not?" Daisy approached Juliana and continued. Miss McKee, it's never wrong to stand up for other people, but you need to know what kind of people are worthy of your help. I'm willing to apologize if it's someone else. But Lisa? I will never apologize to her as she doesn't deserve it. Juliana took a step back unconsciously, and Lisa took a step forward to shield Juliana behind her. Daisy, I don't need your apology. I understand why you hate me and why you're doing this to me, but please don't drag Anna into this. Daisy scoffed coldly. You really are such a hypocrite. You said you don't need my apology, so why did you come all the way here to the Victoria Business College and express your grievances to Anna? Why did you act like you were the victim in front of her? You wanted her to stand up for you, didn't you? You wanted to make yourself look like you're the good, innocent princess who's mistreated while I'm the bad, evil stepmother, right? That's not what I want. That's enough. Juliana shouted as she pushed Daisy, causing Daisy to lose her balance. Someone appeared and held her in his arms when she was about to fall to the ground. Daisy was stunned and turned her head around. It was Nole, and his face was filled with rage. Juliana's face turned pale. Lisa hastily stepped forward and said, "Nole, please don't be angry at Anna. She didn't do it on purpose." Even though Nole did not say a single word, his gaze was freezing cold and sent a chill down Lisa's spine. Damn it. Why would Nole show up here? But I'm sure that he saw it wasn't me, but Anna who pushed Daisy. I just need to explain to him later and push all the blame to Anna, thought Lisa. Nole ignored both of them. He grabbed Daisy's hand and brought her away from there. It was only when the oppression disappeared that Juliana let out a sigh of relief. She turned to Lisa and asked, "Aren't you Nole's best friend since childhood? Why was he helping Daisy?" Lisa bit her lips and acted pitifully, "I think it's because Daisy had been circling around Nole in the past. There's a chance that Nole has also been tricked by her." "What? We can't let her have her way. I'll go look for Nole right now and expose Daisy's true colors in front of him." Lisa stopped her and said, "No, please don't, Anna. I don't want to drag you into this." Of course, it went without saying that she would not let Juliana go to look for Nole. If not, she would be done for when she returned to the Knolls later. Juliana sighed. "How can you be so kind, Lisa?" Nole brought Daisy to the back of a building. When Daisy was about to ask him something, he suddenly turned around and pinned her against the wall. He leaned closer to her and whispered, "You're such an idiot." Daisy was stunned for a moment, and then she shouted exasperatingly, "Who are you calling an idiot?" However, Nole had gotten a little bit too close to her, and Daisy turned her face sideways. She placed her hands on his chest and tried to push him away from her. "Stop it, Nole. People might see us. There's nothing to be worried about." Nole grabbed her hand and kissed the tip of her finger. "We're in college now. Even if people see us, they'll only think of us as a couple." Daisy was startled by his movement. Her cheeks were so red that they looked like they were burning. She stammered, "Stop. Stop it." Chapter 1607. Daisy's heart was racing so fast that it nearly jumped out of her chest. Nole chuckled upon seeing how scared she was and stopped teasing her. After all, he couldn't push her too hard, or she might run away. He raised his hand to rub her hair and said, "All right. Don't you have classes? You should probably go back to your class now." Daisy pushed him away and fled. Looking at her figure that was slowly disappearing into the hallway, Nole wiped over the corner of his lips with his finger. He had been waiting for her for too long, and no matter what happened, there was no way she could escape from him. Daisy couldn't concentrate at all in her class. Keeping her head low, she looked at her hand that was holding the pen. She could still feel Nole's warmth from the tip of her finger. When Nole was kissing her finger, his eyes looked like he was going to devour her whole, and coupled with his charmingly good-looking face, not only did she not feel scared, but she also fell for him even more. She put her book up and leaned over the desk with a flush coloring her cheeks and ears. For her, it was similar to a hit under the belt, and she did not know how long she could hold herself before she completely surrendered to Nole. Meanwhile, at the Knolls mansion, Nole did not have classes, so he returned home early. As soon as he stepped into the living room, he saw Lisa explaining something to Tristan. Tristan lifted his head and put the newspaper down. "Nole, you're early today." Nole replied, "Yeah. I have something I need to take care of." When Lisa met Nole's freezing gaze, her blood turned cold, and she was petrified on the spot. Tristan did not press the matter on. He slowly got up from the chair and said, "I'll be going to the company now." Lisa hastily asked, "Godfather, can I come with you?" She knew that Nole had come back for her. Without Tristan's protection, she knew something bad was going to happen to her. She did not want to get chased out of the Knolls. Frowning, Tristan asked, "Why do you want to come with me to the company?" I want to gain more experience. Besides, I want to find something to do." Tristan looked at Lisa. He knew Lisa had been performing rather well in the Noles for the past 4 years, except for the incident that happened last night. Although he was not going to ask if Daisy had framed her, it was Lisa who had caused her to get scolded by Nicholas 4 years ago. Thus, he felt it was reasonable that Daisy wanted to take her revenge at the birthday party. He was willing to turn a blind eye toward their fight as long as it wouldn't affect the relationship between the two families. Besides, other than being the one who had saved his life and his goddaughter, Lisa was not related to the Noles in the slightest bit. Also, Nole, his nephew, and niece-in-law did not like her very much. He would only put in good words for her occasionally because he pitied her and that she was well behaved. Otherwise, she would have been thrown out of the Noles a long time ago. "What do you think, Nole?" asked Tristan. Nole was sitting on the couch, pouring himself a cup of tea. "Are you really sure about it, Uncle Tristan? Our company is now in the process of expansion. We don't have extra money to pay for someone who can't bring any profit to the company. Having a good education background is one thing, but if she lacks the capability, I won't take her in either. Besides, what if the staff learns that I hired her because she's your goddaughter? Do you think it's fair for them?" Tristan pondered over the things that Nole said and felt he was right. There had been a significant improvement in the Noles' performance compared to the past, and it was true that they needed to recruit more talented personnel and business elites. They did not even open their internship to the public until today. If Lisa really joined the company, she would need to start from scratch. The company was in the process of expansion, and everyone was busy, so no one had the time to guide a newcomer. What's more, Lisa was not an IT major either. After a long while of contemplation, he said, "I'll let you decide then." After Tristan went away, Lisa's face sank. She knew that Nole was going to settle the score with her. She parted her lips and explained, "Nole, it wasn't my fault for what happened today. I didn't expect Anna to misunderstand my words, and I already tried my best to stop her." Chapter 1608. Nole was playing with the empty cup in his hand. Without lifting his head to look at her, he asked, "Have you finished talking?" Lisa's shoulders trembled. "Nole, please, you've got to trust me this time. I wasn't looking for Daisy for trouble. I've listened to everything you said for the past 4 years. I didn't look for Daisy. It was all Anna's fault." "Lisa." Nole lifted his eyelid and looked at her gloomily. Lisa felt her blood turning cold, and her face turned ashen pale. "Nole. Don't call me that. It makes me feel sick." Lisa was stunned and clenched her fist tightly. "You allowed Daisy to call you that in the past, but you feel sick when I call you the same way she does?" Lisa did not understand why she wasn't the one who got Nole's love. Suddenly, she thought of something. Could it be that his memory has been restored? Her lips were trembling as she asked, "So, what should I call you?" As he wiped the tea stain on his finger, he said, "Ask the maids." "You're going to call me how the maids address me. But I'm your... Do you really think you're one of the Noles, because you're staying in the Noles mansion?" Nole rose to his feet, walked around the table, and stood in front of her. She lowered her head as she did not have the guts to meet his gaze. "Yes. Young Master Noles. Peter." Nole summoned his butler. Peter walked forward and stood beside him reverently. "How may I assist you, young Master Noles? From today onward, arrange some work for her and keep her busy. If she doesn't have anything to do, she'll go around and disgrace the Noles, understand?" Peter would never go against Nole's orders, so he nodded. "Understood." Lisa looked at Nole and bit her lips as he slowly disappeared from her vision. She refused to accept this. Why must she be treated like a maid and do the maid's job? This was all Daisy's fault. At the Victoria Business College, the afternoon session was a dance performance. All of them drew lots for the ballet they needed to rehearse, and Daisy got the Black Swan. She was getting her makeup ready at the back of the stage while the other students were performing on the stage one after another. A student brought her the costume and shoes. "Daisy, I'll put your clothes and shoes here." Daisy looked at the student through the mirror and smiled, "Thank you." After the student left, Daisy took the costume and went into the fitting room. Juliana came to the back of the stage after Daisy went into the fitting room. When she saw Daisy's ballet shoes on the desk, a thought surfaced in her head, and she gnashed her teeth. She bullied Lisa first. She's an evil two-faced bitch. I don't need to feel sorry for doing this to her. With that thought in her mind, Juliana walked over and stabbed a tiny nail into the tip of each of Daisy's ballet shoes. As long as Daisy did not look at it closely, she wouldn't know. Don't you have a lot of confidence in yourself? Aren't you the top achiever? Let's see how you will get the professor's compliments this time. After she finished everything, she turned around and left. As soon as Daisy changed, someone informed her it was her turn to get on the stage. She did not have the time to check on her shoes, so she put them on and walked to the stage. She stood on the stage and began to perform as the lights beat down and the music played. She had a good physique and looked like a graceful swan with her black feather ballet skirt. All of her movements were smooth, but suddenly, stabbing pain in her toes caused her to tremble and her movements to freeze. Even the professors below the stage noticed her strange movements. Daisy was the top achiever amongst the drama, theater, and film department newcomers. She had a good memory as she could remember all her lines without difficulty and performed excellently in both dancing and drama. She would never make any mistakes, but all the professors frowned this time. Daisy took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She gnashed her teeth and endured the stinging pain in her toes. Her movements became smooth again, and even the expression on her face was perfect. Chapter 1609. The professors below the stage nodded in satisfaction when they saw how quickly and smoothly she adjusted back to her normal standard. This was something they would expect from a top achiever. Even if she made a mistake, she quickly adjusted herself back to normal. Juliana, hiding in the dark, did not expect Daisy to continue dancing despite her pain. How did she do that? Does she not feel any pain at all? That being said, she was certain that Daisy's marks would be deducted this time. After the music ended, a round of applause erupted from the stage below, and Daisy fell down. The professors stood up and asked, "What happened?" A student who was close to the stage saw what happened and shouted, "Miss, there's blood on her shoe." The professor rushed to the stage and took off her shoes to inspect them. Suddenly, she found something and pulled out a tiny nail from the tip of each shoe. The nail was drenched in blood. Daisy took a sharp breath, but she did not get defeated. Instead, she smiled at the professor and said, "Miss, I'm sorry. I've tried my best." The professor rose to her feet and said, "Bring Daisy to the infirmary." When Colton learned that Daisy was rushed to the infirmary during her performance, he went straight to the infirmary. When he saw both her toes wrapped in gauze, his face sank. What the hell happened? The students who sent her to the infirmary told Colton everything, and he was so furious that his entire body was shaking. Daisy lifted her head and said, "Colton, I'm fine." Colton said through his gritted teeth, "Shut up." He turned his head around to ask that female student, "Did you guys find out who put the nails in her shoes?" She shook her head, but she thought of something and said, "Oh yeah, before I came here, I heard someone say that they saw Juliana going backstage. She isn't from the drama, theater, and film department, so I don't know who she came to see." Juliana. Daisy soon learned who the culprit that had put the nails in her shoes was. Colton let out a cold smirk. "Juliana, huh?" Just when he turned around and was about to leave the infirmary, Nole arrived with Juliana. He grabbed her arm and pushed her into the room. "I brought her here." Juliana lost her balance and fell to the floor. Then, she looked at them fearfully and asked, What do you want?" Colton approached her and asked, "You're the one who put nails in my sister's shoes?" "Yes, it's me. I just wanted to teach her a lesson. Besides, I just wanted her to fail in her performance. I wasn't going to kill her or whatsoever. She framed Lisa and refused to apologize, so she deserves this." Juliana did not deny what she had done. Since she had the guts to do it, she had the guts to admit it. Colton grabbed her by her collar and snarled, "You weren't going to kill her? You still want to kill her?" Juliana's face turned pale. I'm not as evil as she is. Did Lisa tell you to do this? Juliana's eyes went red around the rims as she shouted, "No. I did this myself. I just wanted to help Lisa get her revenge. I didn't do anything wrong." She refused to submit to force and was loyal to her friend. Besides, Daisy felt it was truly admirable that she had the courage to take responsibility for what she had done. It was just that she had befriended the wrong person. Daisy looked at her sympathetically. After a short while of silence, she said, "Juliana, I'll pretend this never happened." Juliana was stunned. Colton released her and took a deep breath. He stood with his arms on his waist as he looked at Daisy. "Daisy, are you crazy? Let's move on from this, Colton." She was just standing up for her friend, and I think it's a noble thing to do. Everyone will have a time when they don't know what is right or what is wrong. As long as she doesn't go too far, I can forgive her. Besides, the professor agreed that I could retake the exam. Chapter 1610. Daisy lowered her head and looked at the bewildered Juliana. "Anna reminds me of my past self. It's just that you need to consider whether or not it's worth it for you to do this for Lisa." Juliana stood up and said, "Daisy, I don't need your sympathy. I'm the one who put the nails in your shoes, so you can just go ahead and report it to the professor." "Report you and get you expelled from the college? Is this what you want?" Juliana was stunned. Daisy then continued expressionlessly, "How would you explain to your father if he asked why you got expelled from the college?" Juliana fell silent. "Anna, if I really rely on the fact that I'm the daughter of Nolan Goldman to do whatever I want, then there's a huge possibility that you will be expelled from the college for what you did. I don't have to care about what you think at all. I don't know what Lisa said about me in front of you, but I can tell you that I have never done her wrong. Do you think she would dare to tell you about the things she did to me? If I really wanted to get rid of her, do you think she would still be here? You must not look only at the surface of things. If you ask me why I hate Lisa so much, I can tell you very clearly that I hate her." Juliana's hand clenched tightly. Lisa had only told her how Daisy treated her, and all those things she had heard were coming out of Lisa's mouth. That's why she hated Daisy. She had been under the impression Daisy was a selfish person who bullied Lisa with her family background. On the other hand, Lisa was so kind and soft-hearted, so she had never doubted anything she said before. However, Daisy had the courage to admit that she hated Lisa publicly. Just like she had said, given her status, there were more than 100 ways for her to get rid of Lisa if she really wanted to. She only knew that Lisa was the adopted daughter of the Noles. If the Noles really liked her, there was no way they wouldn't allow her to take on their surname. After all, Juliana was fully aware of how those people with power and influence operated. If Daisy was a vengeful person, she would have gotten rid of Lisa a long time ago. Daisy pulled over the blanket and said, "You can leave now." Juliana pressed her lips tightly, turned around, and left. Colton looked at Daisy. Initially, he thought she had let Juliana go because her stupidity and naivety had gotten to her head again. He did not expect that she was doing this, because she did not want to destroy Juliana's future. He knew that Daisy decided to let Juliana off the hook because she saw her own fully SH self on her. She did not want Juliana to end up like her. Juliana was not a bad girl, it was just that Lisa had blinded her. She believed everything she did was for her friend and an act of justice. However, the reality was that Lisa was taking advantage of Juliana, while Juliana herself was not aware of it. If she got expelled from the college, she would become Lisa's tool through and through. Daisy was giving Juliana a chance to see through Lisa. It seemed to him that his sister had grown up a lot. When Colton saw that Nole was still in the infirmary, he frowned and said, "Your job here is done, so what are you still doing here?" Nole crossed his arms in front of his chest and said, "What do you mean by my job here is done? Do you have anything else to do here?" He smiled. Everything that's related to Daisy is my business. Nole, you. A pillow flew across the air and landed on Colton's face. Both of you, get out of the room. I need to rest. The two boys were chased out of the infirmary. When they were going down the stairs, Colton was walking behind Nole, trying his best to look through him. No matter what you're planning, I won't let you get it your way. I won't let you lay your fingers on Daisy.